For me, vision is an intelligent form of thought.
Creativity is contagious. Pass it on.
Hey, welcome to the Street Shots Photography Podcast. This is Antonio.
And this is Ward.
And this is episode 213 for the middle of August, 2024.
Middle of August, 213 is the area code for Los Angeles.
That's, yeah. Do you know why they came up? You know how they came up with the area codes, right?
It had the middle digit had to be either a 0 or a 1 to begin with. That's one thing
but you know, like New York is 212. New York is 212.
Yeah.
And Los Angeles 213. Right. Because the old dials. Now this is for anybody who's 20 years old or younger.
Telephone. Yeah.
A rotary telephone used to have a dial on it, and you dial the numbers, but the 212 were faster to dial because they were closer to the end of the dial, to the beginning of the dial. So anything that was really close, it's where they had I'm going to not get this exact. So anybody who's listening to this who knows, you can let me know. But the gist of it is, my guess is that there were more telephones or more calls being made between New York and Los Angeles, or anybody who had an area code that was close to the beginning of the dial. So 212, you go zip, zip, zip. 213 was zip, zip, zip.
Interesting.
Washington is 202. So that's, it's quick and then slow and then quick. And I don't know others area codes. So that has nothing to do with photography.
Interesting.
But I thought, it has to, yeah. So middle of August, this is I'm hearing people already say, it's, summer is almost over and we're almost in September, and yeah, sure. Okay, fine. Perhaps if we're counting the days like that. And I was doing a shoot at the Prospect Park, the Celebrate Brooklyn shoot, since we were talking about stuff like this. And for some reason I had this really kind of sort of time travel experience feeling of like when I was a kid again. And I remember middle of August didn't feel like, 2 or 3 weeks of summer left. It still felt like I was in the middle of summer. Right.
Yeah.
So it was like, it's just like, try to capture
summer until
that.
You get yanked out of it. Exactly.
Right. It's summer until and even in September.
Canadian speaking here, it's warm. It's like in the 80s today. Beautiful, warm, one of the warmer summers we've had here. And in 3 weeks, there's going to be frost. I know.
Really?
Just how it goes.
In 3 weeks for you?
So September, sometime in September. Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
It usually gets. Yeah.
Do your transitions in seasons happen pretty quickly?
They happen, I would say, in fits and starts. So you'll have some freezing, and then there'll be an Indian summer. Indian summer can be between 2 days or 2 weeks, and then it kind of settles down.
Yeah. All right. Yeah,
but the leaves haven't started turning or anything like that yet.
Started turning. Yeah. That's weird. I mean, I like the fall. I've always liked the fall, and I don't mind it. And anyway, but yeah, we're in the middle of August. This show is in the middle of August, and welcome everybody. You get to hear, welcome to this show. We're to
area codes and weather reports. That's what we're into.
Baby boomer / Generation X people. I think I'm at the cusp of that. We talk and banter about photography, which is so. Our last episode was really great talking to Gino.
It was great fun, and just getting on the same wavelength and sharing our observations of things, and very good.
Yeah. And I realize we can have him on the show more often. I think he really likes to talk with us, and I know I talk to him all the time, once a week, but and what's interesting is, kind of neither of us are commercial photographers anymore. I mean, we'll do jobs here and there, but he's doing his teaching, and he's living in New Mexico, and he's doing his own work, and I'm doing my stuff. And yet, for him, I think now his camera stays on the shelf a little bit longer because he's dealing with, having moved and the renovation and stuff like that. And I understand, I haven't had renovation, but I can imagine, I know that takes up a lot of energy. So the few times he can get out and shoot is really great. in worry, yeah, and then money, and it was like everything, and trying to keep tabs on that. And so, but the fact that even with all that going on, he can still, like, he taps into the sort of, I'm not going to say this right. I mean, I'm going to say the zeitgeist of photography or something. Like it's still part of his. It's
part of his being. Yeah.
Part of his being, and that's kind of what I think. Like for me, and even for you, and maybe a lot of people that we know, is that we're not necessarily commercial photographers, and we may be doing it every day just as I want to say a hobby, but we can still just sort of put ourselves into that pool and talk about it in hopefully a deep and meaningful way, and so it means that if you do put your camera up on the shelf for a little while or something like that, but there's still many ways of still being involved and loving photography. So that's what I really love about him, is like you could just and we could go from talking about refrigerators and our cats to like suddenly talking about Gustave Le Gray or something,
which we did.
We did talk about him, right? Yeah, right. Yeah. We did. So that was a wonderful conversation. It'd be great to get him and somebody else on. So it would be like a foursome, and like how to weave that conversation. I wouldn't know who the fourth person should be. Maybe he might know somebody, and we can have.
And we'll play Texas Scramble. Whoever hits the furthest gets the shot.
Yeah. Texas Scramble. What is that?
Oh, that's where a team of golfers play, and you play best shot.
Oh,
so everyone shoots off the tee, and the best shot takes where that ball lands is where everyone plays from on the next shot, and so on. Okay. It's a way to get really bad players to play a little bit faster.
Okay. I never heard of that.
Yeah.
Oh, that's interesting. So what have you been up to?
Besides, I've been working.
Been
walking the dog, taking pictures of clouds.
We've got cloud pictures.
Not too much.
You got a lot of good clouds.
There's some. Yeah, it's threatens. We've had a few thunderstorms roll right by us, not over us, right by us. Mm-hmm. And we're getting into the weather report section again. But anyway, bad hailstorm, lots of damage. Other parts of the city here, it skipped us, so that's good.
Yeah,
but I do like the dramatic clouds this time of year.
Clouds are, I have to say, they're very addictive. I had some really nice ones yesterday. And again, I face east, so I'm seeing the clouds being lit by the sunset. So so they're front lit, not back lit, but there were some really nice ones. And, we talked about this a couple of weeks ago or a few weeks ago, whatever, but like I instead of pulling out the Fuji cameras and stuff like that, and I sort of have them scattered around the house, but like none of them have the lens that I want on it. I was like, you know what? The hell with it. I reach in my pocket, I pull out my phone, I turn it on to RAW. So it's a RAW capture because I just know that we had those, really kind of puffy cumulus clouds that are lit brightly by the sun, and then the really dark ones. And so I just know that JPEG is going to really mess those up. Although actually iPhone does a pretty good job on the
Snapseed even has a really good time, or has an easier time dealing with JPEGs.
Yeah.
Though you can't, with open sky, you can get a banding thing, but.
Yeah. But I shot the RAW and there were the 48 megapixel RAW files. So there's a lot of space with that picture. And I just processed them. I haven't uploaded them yet. I'd probably put them on the neighborhood Facebook page or something like that, because they were just really nice. But yeah, it was just easier to go and get the phone, and clouds are like one of those things, like even when I was shooting film, I would shoot actually, clouds were a really good stock subject. We had a cloud file at the image bank that was insanely large, physically insanely large. It's so funny that I didn't even think about this for a while. Clouds.
These are slides. Are there slides?
Slides. They were slides because everybody shot clouds. And then once the photographer heard that, some other photographer made a fortune on a cloud shot, they would start submitting clouds, and there'd be clouds from Tahiti. And,
low barrier to entry. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. I actually made a pretty good sale once on a cloud shot. And again, people are going to say, well, cloud shot, how did you make so much money? And that was just because that was the way things were built. They build based on the usage. So if it was like a worldwide usage, you'd get paid a lot of money no matter what the subject was, which was a little kind of weird because a cloud shot would be equal to someone who, in terms of that kind of usage, than, a shot of, someone who had climbed the top of Mount Everest and caught, the summit there.
Yeah.
And that's a much harder picture to get.
Yeah.
And, but in terms of usage, anyway, clouds. So yeah, clouds are low hanging fruit for me for photography, but it always gets people to sort of say, wow, look at that, look at that. And I like looking out my window and seeing clouds that look like they could be in the Midwest or the Southwest or something like that. I was like, no, it's just Brooklyn. So
it's North America. Everybody gets clouds.
Yeah. And they're always something that looks new. Anyway, so that's our weather report.
Now sports.
Yeah. Well, what was I going to say? Oh, also, I wanted to mention that I can't remember exactly when, but since the last time you and I spoke on our own, so in a month, I did meet up with our listener and new friend of the show, not new friend, he's a friend of the show, Jeffrey Saldinger in Astoria, Queens. So Jeffrey, you're listening. That was we hung out for like 3 or 4 hours. And there was this great diner on whatever street we were on. I think it was Broadway in Astoria. And, she's like a diner. So there's, nice, good food, big plates, right? And
cool.
They didn't bother us, which was nice. They let us sit there and talk for a long time, and we went through a whole bunch of different subjects and talked photography. And I had his book with me, and I had him sign it. So, cool. And he was actually worried that he wouldn't be able to sign one for you. And I was like, well, when word comes back to town, we'll make sure we get that.
Yeah, it'd be great.
We had a really nice talk, and then we walked around a little. It was one of those like pretty miserably hot days, and so we walked around a little, and he was showing me some of the places where he photographed. Excuse me. And it was really fun to talk about, like, look at his neighborhood from that point of view of like photography and where things are and the context of stuff. And that was very fun to do. And we didn't have that much time to hang out because I had to head back home, but it was really nice to just do that with another photographer. And yeah, so it was really great to hang out with him. I would love to be able to have more hangouts with people who listen to the show if they're in the area. So like even like a meetup or something. So someday,
be cool.
We'll see. Yeah. But Jeffrey and I plan to get together at some other point. So, Jeffrey, thank you. That was a wonderful hangout. So, what else has been going on? Oh shoot! I just wanted to talk photography with you. There's like two guys that we haven't talked a bunch of things. I didn't really have a specific subject. I just want to sort of bounce around a little bit. But so one of the things. So I've been teaching a lot, right? So I've been doing a lot of classes. The classes have been getting better. I think I told you guys that I was teaching a Lightroom class at Brick.
Yeah.
And it was a 2-parter. And I think I finally found the equilibrium with the class. Like, and how do I say this? I had a class Monday and then last week Monday. So today we're on Tuesday. So I had a class yesterday and then last week. And the problem with me with these classes is that, no, I say a problem. It's just because I'm showing a program and I'm teaching the software. It's a lot different than my other classes where I'm talking about photography and I'm getting up and showing slides of other photographers and stuff like that. This is like how to.
Yeah.
And I've not really been digging it somehow. And I think it's because I've been doing it the way of like sitting in front of the computer and showing the slides and then doing a demo. And I was like, this is not me. And so last week when I started the class, I remember who I was talking to, but I realized that I was doing things like I wasn't looking forward to this class, even though I made up the class, and it's like, this is what if I wanted to do it differently, I could have made it differently, but I didn't. I was doing it because that's kind of the standard. I decided to not start even going against my own curriculum in a way, not totally against it, because the people are there to learn Lightroom and understand things. But instead of sitting behind my computer, I used my Macintosh. I used my own slideshow. I stood up and I also talked about Lightroom within the context of photography.
Mm-hmm. Cool.
So it wasn't just like, well, this is what you do and this is why you do this. And I thought I could interject at least some of my personality and a little bit about like how I do other classes. So a little editorializing and a little soapbox standing and stuff like that, but like at appropriate points. Night and day difference, by the way. Like, cool. And the class was engaged. Like, not only were they like, opening up the files that I gave them, because I would give them all SD cards and they'd open them up, import the pictures. They're all importing my pictures. I was using my photos. But they were engaged in like asking questions about photography in general or things like, and I followed up this week. And what was great was that everybody from the first class showed up for the second class.
Nice.
Now I've only run this class 3 times. So this is 6 sessions, but the other 2 sessions, and I don't know for what reasons, but some people would not show up for the second session. And it was not a big deal. I don't really take it serious, and I don't know, this is such a small data set. I don't know if this has anything to do with me changing the way I work, but because I engaged them better about again, this program isn't just something that sits there. It's part of a context of something else.
Right.
And I think that certainly helped. And I did the same thing in the second part where everybody showed up and we did it. Actually, I ran longer in the class. The class is only 2 hours. And so I ran longer, but everybody stayed for the extra 20 minutes because I think I was supposed to end at 4 and I ended up at 4:20 and they all stayed. Cause some people get up and leave, right? Cause I got to go, but nobody left. Everybody stayed. Yeah. So I thought I'd share that with you guys and you as an interesting thing from a point of view of like me as an instructor. And trying to teach Lightroom in 4 hours or anything is it's almost, I don't want to say impossible.
That's a stretch.
Really, I can only touch on little things, like you could touch here, touch there. Oh, and the computers that they have at Brick are not powerful enough to run the generative AI retouching, which, I was talking about the a little bit of the, morals of AI a little bit, trying not to get too crazy about it. But I was just saying like, for retouching and stuff like this thing is really great. So I got to show them all that stuff on my computer because my computer is much faster. So it was pretty exciting. Anyway, I thought I'd share that because it's fresh. It was a fresh experience and something kind of new in a way. And I think it was also just me deciding to be more myself.
Right.
And doing that and realizing like it works in my other classes and therefore it should work in this. So
good. Congrats. I'm glad it's getting some traction.
I am too. Yeah. I'm also trying to, I'm saying, I'm monopolizing this discussion a little bit, but no, you got me running. I also had a photo journaling class at the library. In fact, it was the same day. No, this was last week. Last week I had a photo journaling class. That was really interesting. I mean, not really interesting. It was good to do that. And there was no photographers in the group, which was a little, it was okay. It was people who were interested in journaling, but it was like really trying to get photographers in there to do it. But that was a really good class. Everybody liked that and they found it therapeutic and all these great words came out and trying to figure out a little bit more to that class, like how to make it maybe a little bit more appealing to people who are taking pictures and not just people who are journaling. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah.
So, yeah. So yeah, it's been a busy couple of weeks with classes. I've been doing a lot of classes and had a lot of freelance video shoots as well. And so anyway, that's been my couple of weeks. But what was I going to say? I was thinking about something, and maybe you have some thoughts about this.
Okay. I sometimes have thoughts.
Sometimes you have thoughts. Sometimes I have thoughts too. Thoughts are there. Yeah, they come up now and then. And I don't know how to, so you might need to help me figure this out. And so this is live thinking. The brain is maybe not working so well. Anyway, one of the things that sort of come up in my thinking these days, and it's been the past couple of weeks, especially with students, is, I tell them, that if they want to look at good photography, do all these things, go to galleries, go to this, go to that. And don't think that you're going to find necessarily good photography on Instagram. I'm not saying there's I'm not saying there isn't good photography on Instagram, but I think it's always good to find some place where it's sort of concentrated and it's not being thrown at you in multiple directions. And, but that got me thinking to, social media and stuff like that. And I really, in my classes, I'm really trying to spend time getting maybe one or two people to just think slightly differently, to think maybe in addition to thumbing through, a social media feed, that there are other ways to absorb and engage in photography, right?
Mm-hmm.
What I realize is that right now, a lot of people are engaging it by giving thumbs up or hearts or whatever, and then moving on. And what I do is I ask them, I said, so all those thumbs up and hearts that you give, do you ever remember the pictures? Do you ever go back and look at them? Right. And I've never seen anybody nod their head and say yes. Everybody shakes their head. And I was like, okay, that's interesting. And that's where I sort of lead them into talking about, photojournaling. I say photojournaling is this nice space to then, reflect on a picture, your own picture, someone else's pictures, and whatever. Like the idea of a personal museum. Anyway, this is a long intro. That's what I'm trying to get. Sorry.
I can't wait for my answer, whatever it is.
I can't wait for my answer. It's going to be, you're going to have like a one-word answer. You'll be like, yes.
Yes. Yes to all of the above.
And then we're going to move on to something else. Sorry. It occurred to me, I received an email from somebody, and I won't say who at the moment, just out of whatever. I'm just going to leave it at that. Who looked through my zines that I made, the 11218 plus zines, and gave me some interesting observations about the images. It was really kind of cool to hear somebody else talk about my pictures and see things in it that maybe I didn't initially consciously see. And I know, on social media, that happens rarely. People often say, if you're going to comment on a picture, you're going to say, that's really great. I love this. Right. I love the way the light does this, X, Y, and Z. But often, and again, I might be just generalizing. I'm sure I am, but at least in the conversations I've seen, there's less of that kind of talk, like how, your picture that you photographed last week resembles this one in sort of this, making those connections. Making connections and stuff. Yeah, maybe that's it. And how that is missing from this forward moving process of whatever it is, social media pictures, whether, and I'll throw in not in just Instagram, but like Vero or anything where photography is this endless stream of stuff. Right. And what I thought about is that, in our collective lately, like we were talking to Dave about a project he's working on. I won't go into the project because that's up to him to talk about, but that engagement and making connections between things is what I see that's missing. And I'm putting this out to you a little bit. I don't know what you have to say about it, but I really want to incorporate more of this into my teaching somehow, make it kind of less dry and maybe a faster intro to it in some way. But I what do you think about this? Where do you think I'm going with this? If we're sitting having a beer and talking about this, I would like to know what you think.
Well, I'll just go on a little parallel stream here and let's see if we can put these two subject matter together.
Okay.
When I'm talking with people about photography, they're around in my sphere, they're not photographers. They want to get into photography.
Right.
And then the question for me is, well, what kind of photography do you like? Well, I don't know. And then you start to go into, well, let's just say, make something up. And when I'm trying to come up with a project for myself, I don't have any ideas and you'd have to start somewhere. So my son, when he was getting started, he liked to take pictures of garbage in the street. He's really passionate about it. So I have this Anthony Hernandez picture or Anthony Hernandez book of pictures of chain link fences and places where unhoused people live and that sort of thing. Not with people in the pictures, but the artifacts and the marks that they left on the walls and all that kind of stuff and the detritus of a big city. Here's an example of an artist who does sort of what you're interested in. And then, he just went pouring through it and he was eating it all up. Like, he was like, it inspired him. And now it's been years now. I don't know, 4 or 5 years now. He's been taking these pictures of tipped over barrels in the street and, that sort of thing. And he has this passion about it. And, if you're a street photographer, if you're interested in shooting street, well, what kind of street? Do you want to just take pictures of buildings? You want to take pictures of people? And you want something a little left to center? I might show someone the Winogrand work on the web or in a book or something. Get them so that they have an idea of what the convention is of the direction that they're going. Not that they have to follow it blindly, but that here's the prior art of what we're talking about. And sometimes it turns people off, but usually it's sort of like, oh, this is very interesting. Oh, I had no idea that this subject was so deep and wide. And it's like that with just about every genre of photography. You can find a lot of stuff that is interesting and inspiring that may tickle the creative aspect in yourself. If for no other reason, if you don't go out and shoot, and most of the people that I talk to don't, they want to talk about photography, but they're not really interested in going out on a lunch hour on a Tuesday to take pictures, to walk up and down the street in streets where they know it so well, they think there's nothing to photograph, right? Which is part of the seeing aspect of shooting that, like Gino said in our last show, trying to get pictures of the thing and not the photograph, right?
Right.
So I think, trying to tap into an inspiration, I guess, is what I'm trying to say here. And I don't know if that mates with what maybe you have just posed. But I mean, if the whole idea of what we're trying to do is inspire people, and the wonderful thing about photography is it's one frame, it's one JPEG, it's one at a time. You can look at these things and you can cover a lot of ground. Now we're starting to lean towards Instagram, and like you said, that's not where we're going. We're going to, resources that where the folks kind of all agree that this is meaningful work, that this is meaningful creativity, and work from there. Anyway, I think that answered your question.
No, that's fine. It's interesting as you're talking. My recent class was a Lightroom class, right? So it wasn't about the history of photography. It wasn't street photography, right? It was a technical class. And I decided to interject some stuff in it, but everybody was in that class because they're interested in the program. Actually the 6 people were there. The majority of them seemed to be interested in like the organizational aspects of Lightroom and taking care of their work. Like, I think that was part of what made the class so interesting for them, is like they wanted to be there. I don't think they were just curious about it.
Yeah.
And that offered this opportunity to say, like, I was sort of doing an audible, right? I was looking at the audience and saying, and sensing like, here's an opportunity for you with Lightroom. Like if you don't have a day where you're going to go out and photograph, that you've got this whole, cache of imagery that's sitting there on your computer that you can go back and look at, and you can say, hey, I did this yesterday, but look what I did 2 weeks ago, and look how they connect to each other.
Oh, I see. Yeah.
That's how you can use the program. The program is not just for processing or organizing. It's like, I think I was describing this in terms of, making collections. So it's one of the powers of Lightroom or any program like that, where you can have multiple pictures in different locations, which you couldn't do in the days of slides and files. You had to put one picture in one place and that's where it lived. And so you would never be open to looking at, say, a cloud picture, then maybe thinking, oh, but that also looks like a dinosaur, and like putting it into the, personification of nature file. You couldn't do that. Like where maybe it would, maybe if the picture was more valuable that way, but
but it could be in a cloud bucket and a personification of nature.
Exactly. Yeah.
Highly rated, and like all these different tags we can put on images so that they appear in more than one place. Yeah.
And not only do they appear in more than one place, but you have access to them when you want to. And so, I tried to balance them out with, look, you have to go take lots of pictures, but those days where you don't feel like taking pictures, you've got a wealth of stuff that's sitting there and you can look through it and you can reflect on it. You can write about it. You can make connections with it. You can print these two pictures together. You can do all this sorts of stuff, everything but just moving forward. And moving forward sounds like that's what you're supposed to do. We're all supposed to move forward about things. And I was like, well, yeah, okay. But there's something about looking back and there's something about making connections and stuff. And
you haven't exhausted the current yet, right? And when you feel like you need to move on, that's your motivation.
I know where I'm getting with this. So, sorry. Oh my God, I'm so funny.
Your arms are flailing like Kermit the Frog.
I know my arms are flailing. Yeah, no, it's just by the way, audience, this is happening live. My brain is starting to fire up now. It's starting to work live. This is how it works sometimes. So this morning, I decided here's what I do. I tell my students, you got to clean off your card, put it on your computer. This is I do in most of my classes, back everything up, make sure you have a couple of backups before you erase your card, yada, yada, yada. All right. And I also say, do as I say, not as I do. Right. Because I do something different a little bit, but this is kind of how I want you guys to do it. Anyway, I've got 4 cameras sort of lying around and I thought I had some time today and I thought, okay, well now it's time for me to dump the cards onto my computer. So sitting there, sticking the cards in and dumping them out. And one of my cameras, one of my cameras had about 1,600 shots on it that I had, which means that they had been like, I have not taken the card out of the camera for a while. So I stuck it in there and I was, and then I'm looking through as they're coming in the edit, I'm looking through the pictures and I did a lot of different things. I did some street photography. I did some of this. And it was really interesting going through those pictures. Like I did a whole bunch of stuff on the Brooklyn Bridge. It was like a couple of weeks ago. I just walked over the Brooklyn Bridge and it was, it was great because I was using my 16 millimeter lens. So that's a 24 on my camera. And so and I was shooting in black and white. And so it reminded me of you for some reason. There was just
because I love that 16 and I shoot black and white. So
yeah. This is but I didn't look at the pictures. I haven't looked at any of these pictures on the camera for a while. Like I literally have been shooting and then putting the camera down and shooting and putting the camera down. So today is the first time I was looking at these. And first of all, it reminded me of the days when we shot film. Right. So you shot film and how many rolls of film did you have sitting there until you had to develop them? And then you develop them and you start making contact sheets and you start going back and saying, oh, look what I did like 4 weeks ago. Like I haven't looked, I didn't immediately pop those pictures onto my phone, into Lightroom and start processing them and then stick them up on social media right away. In fact, I think I might have done it for a few of these pictures that were on here. But like the vast majority of them, I don't even remember taking some of them. I mean, I remember it, but I was like, I said, wow. I was like, look at this picture, and I did some cropping on it, like some people on the Brooklyn Bridge, and I was flagging them. And I was like, this is really interesting, having spent a good amount of time away from the pictures. And even though I like to tell the students, like, get the pictures off your card. I'm trying to do that so that they don't, because a lot of them managed their files like on their card, like all their pictures are just stored on their card,
Oh, yeah.
I want to get them out of that habit. Like, don't do that. Get them off. No, where are your pictures? Oh, they're all on here. You got to be kidding me. Yeah. But, so this is not quite the same thing, but this is just me being not lazy. I haven't had the time to dump the pictures often, but it was really, really, really fun to look at stuff that I shot. I think this one camera I haven't dumped in like 2 months. And so I've had stuff for like 2 months and I go back and I was like, oh, look at this picture. Look at this picture, And so essentially they're new shots, but not in terms of time, they're months old at this point. So anyway, it was a learning experience in some way about, and that we may have talked about this a lot, maybe not. Well, you're more like this, right? I mean, you're both, right? You will put pictures up right away, but sometimes, and then you sit on them for a long time.
Yeah, depend if the subject matter is particularly emotional, or I'm not sure that I got the intention of it changes. So if I look at them once cause I import them all right away, like I get them up and get them on my NAS as soon as possible, as soon as I get home from wherever. So I do that. So there are projects like my community project, which I started in 2017, which is still on a very slow burn right now. I will go back to that. And I kept track of what neighborhoods in town that I've covered and which ones I still have to go to and so on. And that'll happen. It's going to take its sweet time, but I don't look too closely at those images with the mind to editing them and putting them out there. And what was I going to say after that? Something important. Well, yeah, the ones that are really long-term projects, or that somehow or other disappointed me, or the tack of them changed, like the meaning of them changed in the act of shooting them, I will put those away and not deal with, and I'll look at them later. That could be weeks or months down the road. When I'm doing these, and I'm doing rodeo and I'm doing the street work, the street stuff I want to do right away, because that was a pattern when Mark Ryerson and I used to go out, during the lunch hours. I couldn't wait to go home, and after dinner I'd, put in the card and I'd import it and post to social media. That was like a skill set I was trying to develop. So right. I have a habit of, particularly with street stuff, to get it on and get it up, so that there's a closest relationship from when I'm shooting to when I'm not necessarily posting, but when I'm doing post processing, so that what did I do right in this one? What did I do wrong in this one? And try and build a skill up. And that's what I've been trying to do with street. And so it's all up in my head. I mean, when I was in New York, right, I was uploading every day and going through them and trying to put them up and like, okay, is this the direction I want to go? And I mean, I think I told you when I was changing my point of view a little bit, as the days were going by. And so that's important to me as a street photographer, to try and evolve, because you can, it's easy to get lazy when you're shooting street, I think. And it's hard because, well, I think it's one of the hardest genres to do, because you don't have really control over anything except your camera and where you point it. So yeah, I'm of two minds, right? The stuff that I do every day that I would like to put up and look at, evaluate, edit, and then stuff where, okay, I'm too far away from this, or I'm too close to this, and I'll get back to it. So that's where I am with that.
You're making these decisions deliberately, though. Like
it's deliberate, but it's not like the pictures of the women that I shot last summer. I still haven't really touched them.
Yeah.
Like they're going to sit there until I'm compelled to go look at them and start to edit them. Yeah. I mean, there are a couple of pictures that were fluffy that I posted, but not the emotional core of what I was doing.
And my point a little bit is, I mean, you're very aware of what it just sounds like you're aware of what you're doing. And in like this case, first of all, I was really surprised that I had 1,600 shots, and they're RAW plus JPEG. So there's twice as many files on there as actually when I put the card in. There's a 128 gigabyte card, and I looked at it and it said, 18 or 20 gigabytes left. I was like, what? And I was like, I wonder if I shot any movies on it, because it's like that's a lot of card, right? And I looked at it and I popped it in, and Lightroom said 1,699. Oh, by the way, I hit 1.1 million files on your Lightroom. That doesn't include the JPEGs. It doesn't actually include all the files. Like there's anyway. But I was like, ooh, 1.1 million I've got now. Anyway, I was surprised at the amount of pictures, and when I looked at it, the dates, I was like, wow, I caught myself by surprise. Did I take 1,600 pictures of it? My other cameras had, my GFX, I had like 80. My X100, I had about a couple of hundred, because I've been bringing that a lot more and doing some street shots. And then my X Pro, I had probably about another 150. So like those all felt right. And also when I looked at my monthly totals in Lightroom, because of the adding for I have my stuff by months. It didn't show that many pictures. I was like surprised at it. Like I thought I was shooting more
Stretched
pictures
out over time.
Yeah. So, and this was on this camera was my XH2, so it's the 40 megapixel 40 megapixel thing, which I carry. I do a lot of street photography with that too. It's kind of fun to carry and look at the bent screen and stuff like that. But anyway, I was surprised. I was surprised at how many shots I had there, which meant I really just literally put the camera on the shelf, and every once in a while I'll take it and I put it back down, which is unusual for me because I like to sometimes go through it and, sitting in the coffee shop. I've been doing different things in my coffee shop now, so my brain has shifted a little bit. So, not that photography is taking a side note. I've been doing more writing, but it's. He's got 1,600 pictures, and looking at the back of the camera, going through those pictures after a while, it's like, geez, this is kind of going back, even swiping and stuff like. Forget it. I was like, I'm not going to do that. So anyway, I was just, it was something that I wasn't aware of, and the surprise of it, the surprise of the amount of different subjects that I caught was kind of fun, and again, it just had this little bit of like memory of like when photography was first new to me, or even that idea of waiting and seeing what did the pictures turn out like, send the Kodachrome to Fairlawn, and you waited a week and you got that yellow box back. Or I usually get a FedEx box that was full of yellow boxes, and I was like, ooh, I got like 150 boxes in there or something like that, and I have to go through each one of them on a light table, and I was like, it was like a pig in poop, like, oh, this is great, taking a loop and looking at all the pictures. So it evoked that feeling in me, and how to sort of find that balance between what you're talking about and what I'm talking about for somebody who's new and want to inspired, and it's not just about slowing down, although there's that in there. It's how to get, let's say, people who are new at this to say, look, stop going through pictures every day, start going through your own stuff, start, when the winter comes and you're bored and it's too cold to go out, go in your Lightroom catalog and find, what you did last year and the year before or whatever. And like how to get that to be not the norm, but make that as like a viable option and
activity.
So, well, anyway, I don't know if I can solve this or kind of just throw this out in the world, but I like when something like this comes up for me right away because it feels like it's relevant to.
It sounds like a project actually, because I have 3 bodies now, and I can just have one body be the one that I don't process and leave the card in it. I mean, that's something I could certainly do.
Is that something you would do? I mean,
sure. I'm always looking for a project. Like I'm looking for a kernel of, because I can sit here and go, I can't think of anything to do. Well, I have a whole bunch of these, maybe half a dozen long-term projects in my consciousness. This could be another one. Like, I don't use my black body very much. I'll just use it, put a lens on it. And
would you actually take it out and shoot it and then really sit it down? I mean, yeah.
Well, if that's what I'm supposed to do, that's what I'll do. Right. Oh. I mean, I just, what's the workflow going to be like with this camera, with this card in it? Okay. Well, we're just going to shoot. We're not going to, we're not going to chimp. We're not going to,
right.
Whatever.
We're not going to dump the card. I mean, we are taking a little bit of a risk in some way.
Yeah, but that's part of the fun of the project. I mean,
yeah.
People complain that these cameras only have a single memory card slot. Oh my goodness, how could we?
I know.
How many times have you opened the back of a film camera?
Where did that come from? That drives me crazy. I mean, I like if I'm using a professional camera, and the fact that someone, I don't know which manufacturer, decided to give us 2 card slots at some point, and then everybody else followed them. It was a genius idea for a professional. It's like, great, we've got
this. Shooting weddings, whatever. You have a backup copy, or you have JPEGs over here and RAW over there.
Yeah. It's the smartest thing. It was the smartest thing that they could do, and it was something that we never had with film. Because yes, you open up the back of the film and then you close it really fast. You're like, oh damn it, I've got film in there. Or you're taking pictures and your film counter says 34. You take a shot and it says 35, and then you take a shot and it says 36, and then you take another shot and it says 36, and you take another shot and you take 36. And you're like, oh, that's not good, right? And there's two things either happened. One, the film did not spool up on the other side.
Right. The leader didn't grab.
The leader didn't grab. So you've been photographing 36. Luckily, it was only 36 pictures, but you photographed 36 pictures of nothing. Or something went wrong with your camera and it ripped the sprockets of the film, and the same result happened. Like you didn't get any shots. Yeah. But yeah, we only had that one opportunity, and now that we've got cards, which are they're as reliable as they can be. I mean, for crying out loud. So yeah, there is that risk.
I would say just to that particular issue. So I had Pentax cameras growing up, right?
Yeah,
so
me
when
too.
you push the release, the drive release, it had a little
on the bottom,
a little spot on the bottom, and when you rewound it would you could see it spin. So it could be like, oh, okay, actually there's film on the take up side.
Oh, you're talking about with the winder, with the power winder.
With the winder.
Yes,
no, not with the power winder. The actual button to release the film so you could rewind it. It had a little black divot on it, so you could watch it rewind. Oh. And on the newer Pentaxes, like the LX, it actually counted backwards on the counter, so you could do multiple exposure.
No, I just knew that when you were rolling the film back, you could feel it. You could feel the tension. Yeah, you could feel, and you could hear.
It's nice to have a visual cue that it's actually happening.
Yeah, well, with my Nikon F3. Well, actually, all my film Nikons, but with the power winders on them, when you were finished rolling, you hit rewind on the power winder, then the rewind dial would spin around.
Oh, it'd spin, yeah.
So it would spin, so because it was spinning the film, so you would know that your film was going back into the cassette and stuff. So yeah, I don't know how we got on.
We're just talking about the dual card slots
and the dual cards
on this entry level. I can't recommend this entry level camera because it doesn't have dual card slots.
That's a bunch of.
When you're at your 5-year-old's birthday party and you're taking the pictures and oh my goodness, the one in every 20,000 hours that your memory stick could fail, it's failed, and we've lost these images.
Well, that's the one thing I do is with the students, I tell them try not to do too much picture management on your camera, because the more you do that, the more chances are that you're going to get a corruption and reformat the card on the camera and stuff like that. Like, do these best practices, and then you won't have to worry about losing your stuff so much. But yeah. So I don't know if this is, I don't know if we got time to go talk about the other things we wanted to talk about, but in terms of our timing here, but
we can talk about other stuff. I don't know.
Yeah. I think, oh, and I don't know. I think I'm talked out.
Okay.
I don't want to drag on to this new subject, because we had these other subjects that we want to talk about, but I think we can put those into a future show, because I wouldn't want to get too deep down our last show. We spoke a lot with Gino, and that was a really good discussion. But I do want to say, what was I going to say? What is it? One of the, oh, darn it. Shoot. No, it doesn't matter. It was more of a hardware thing. How's your camera working out? How's the
really good. Yeah. A Success 20 or whatever you want to call it.
Success 20. Yeah. I like calling it that.
Yeah. I think it's got a good balance. It works really well with that 16. I haven't shot very much with it. I like the autofocus is so much better. We're using it at a shooting street in zone focus. It does a great job.
Oh, really? You got, okay.
I mean, you look at some of the pictures I took even in Manhattan there with the XE3, it's actually made me, those were single point. Those were all single focus. So I would prime the shutter, prime the focus point, and then recompose. Even though I'm shooting from the hip, I have an idea where I'm pointing it and stuff.
Yeah.
So even with those cameras now, instead of doing that, I've gone back to zone focus, and I'm having better luck with my older cameras, even using the sort of narrow area focus, 9, whatever you want to call it. And then having it move wherever on the frame tends to pick whatever's closest, which is fine.
Do you think zone focusing is something worth teaching beginners, or is that something a little bit further down the line, you think?
If what you're going to be shooting requires it so they can see it being used. I mean, we could talk about theory all the time, but depending on if you're going out to shoot street or something, or if you're shooting people, here's some things to keep track of. And, I've been following, not that I'm going to get one, but Ricoh have these GR3 cameras now. There's
right.
kind of one for every day of the week. There's
I know.
There's one for wide angle. There's one for the 40 millimeter. There's a journal version, which is like a silver pewter color. They have what's called snap focus, which is a range. It's sort of like, it reminds me of when you set a range on the bigger telephotos and telephoto zooms.
Oh, right. You can only go
from
so far.
3 meters to 6 meters or whatever, from 5 feet to 20 feet, just so that the camera has an easier time focusing and knows that it doesn't need to go to infinity, go to the background. So features like that, I think, are interesting for the specific contexts that are going to be used. But unless it's more of a theory class than it is a practical class, I don't know that I would share all of those details. If someone asks.
I mean, one of the things I do is I put a slide up that says, learn how to use manual. I don't have time in a 3-hour street photography class. I don't have time to teach them manual stuff, but I do say, if you can learn manual on your camera, learn it, because it just helps you figure out why your camera is doing some stuff in automatic, and you have a lot more controls. And then on the bottom of that, I go, and Google zone focusing. I don't want to talk to you about it, but I'm always wondering if I'm doing them a disservice by not going into it a little bit more, but I think it would just sort of muddy the waters a little bit for somebody who's brand new, rather than maybe having them investigate it on their own or something. And so, I mean, I'll bring in my Fuji X100F to the class to show them as here's an option for a small camera, and listen to the shutter. Can you hear it? And I always take a picture of them, and they can never hear the shutter. And inevitably I'll get someone asking me a question about the camera and in terms of how do you shoot with it? And I say, I rarely, if ever, use automatic focus on it. I'm always setting, my aperture to a certain number and my shutter speed to a certain number. So essentially I'm shooting in manual, but I also turn the autofocus off and just focus that way. And they all sort of look, oh, really? It's like, yeah, because rarely does autofocus work fast enough for you to do anything if you're doing street photography. It's just, sometimes it does depend on the camera you have, but just Google zone focusing and you'll understand a little bit. But I doubt any of them do that. I don't see anybody writing that note down or something like that. So I just wondered if you thought it was something that would be worth going after. And I can't remember when I first learned it, but when we were doing film and hyperfocal distances, it was kind of all part and parcel with that. You sort of had to.
Right. Well, it's part of the theory of the lens too, that that's things like hyperfocal distance.
Right. Yeah.
It's different for different focal lengths, of course. But.
Yeah. How did you learn about zone focusing? I mean, you didn't go to school for it. Did you just?
Well, no, I got it from my cheap camera. So I had, actually, Mark's got my Olympus Trip 35, right? And it's got a picture of one person, a picture of 3 people, and a picture of a mountain. That's where you set. That's where you set for, you guesstimate how to focus a camera. Now, the lens is a 40 millimeter. It's a 35 millimeter camera. So, it's a 2.8. It's got a fairly wide aperture, but the minimum focusing distance is something like 5 or 6 feet. So you're good in terms of, kind of guesstimating where things go. Right. And then when I got my Pentaxes, they have the markings for the depth of field markings on
on the lenses.
And Pentax and Nikon were, they were every one of their typical lenses, and even their zoom lenses had the markings, and they'd have those lines, those kind of vortex looking lines on the zooms when you rack them out, right?
Right. Oh, right. Those vortex. Oh, yeah. I remember those on those zooms.
Yeah, the pull zooms. Yeah, you could tell from there, and then you just I just put infinity on the furthest distance, and then I tried not to focus. If I was at f8 or whatever, I would typically didn't stop down less than that with the film that I was using in those days.
Yeah,
at 5.6 or 8, and just have infinity on that, or in the range, whatever the range was. I thought I'd be doing the shooting for.
Yeah, I remember having to learn it. I mean, in high school, we were learning photography on 4x5 cameras, so that wasn't really showing up in that. Although we were learning all the motions of the camera to get better focus. What is it? The Schleimpflug
rule,
principle. So I was learning that. There was no real reason to do hyperfocal distance stuff on 4x5 cameras. I can't remember if we were learning 35 stuff, but I certainly remember doing that in college or something like that, or having to figure that out. But maybe somewhere along the line, I learned that, like, the colors of the markings on the lens were the same colors, the different colors on the aperture ring. And so each aperture number had a different color. And when you had that little hyperfocal range, like if you stared at it long enough, you can kind of figure out, like, oh, there's this distance that you can do. But when I first learned about hyperfocal distance, where you could actually, you set it to this number and then you can you can throw your lens kind of literally out of focus in a way by having the focus fill that range between the aperture numbers. And I remember being blown away by that. I was like, whoa, really? You can do this? Yeah. So anyway.
Your circles of confusion are getting smaller, my friend.
That's going to...
do photography jokes all night.
That's the name of this episode, by the way. Circles of Confusion.
All right. I like it. Okay.
Yeah, I'll do that. All right. It sounded pretty confused anyway. So yeah, let's wrap, and we'll come back to the other stuff on another show. We got plenty of stuff to talk about. So cool. It was great. Yeah, I figured I haven't spoken to you about just photography in a while, and I know people like to hear us talking about photography, in our way. So that's what was great. So where are you these days? Which is probably the same as always, but let's let people know where you can be found.
No, on Vero and X, formerly Twitter, I'm at W Rosin Photo. On Instagram, I'm Ward Rosin Fine Art. On Facebook, I'm Ward Rosin Photo. I have my little website for my fine art stuff, and where I did sell the book once upon a time at rosin.ca, rosin.ca, and our unofficial sponsor, and always, is Ornis Photo, ORNIS.photo, where I sell lens adapters and 7 Artisans lenses. And I'm talking with the Viltrox lady. You are talking to
Viltrox.
I'm talking to her. Yeah, I'm talking to Hannah at Viltrox, and we're trying to put something together.
What's new on the Viltrox? What is there's something new on there we want to get. I can't remember now.
Well, actually, she's trying to sell me LED light panels.
Oh, light panels. Okay, I'll have to talk to you about that.
I think portable light panels. I think I'm thinking about going into that. And just light panels and maybe triggers and things like that. I might get into that. So
cool.
So yeah, so that's where I'm from and what I do. So what about you, Antonio? Where can we find you?
I'm on Vero and Flickr at AM Rosario. Instagram, for those occasional times I post pictures, at AM Rosario Photo. My website is amrosario.com. I post a lot on my Facebook account, so come to facebook.com/Rosario Photo and subscribe to our Substack newsletter. I know. I'm behind. I've got the itchy trigger finger. So I know we have one of your stories I want to put up there. So we've passed our 100 subscribers on Substack, so that's great. But I know everybody's waiting for newsletters. So yay! Streetshots.substack.com. And leave us a voicemail at speakpipe.com/streetshots. We got questions or ideas for what the two of us should be talking about. It'd be great to hear hear your voice. So do that. And if you want to support the show, one way to do it is you can buy us a coffee at buymeacoffee.com/Antonio Rosario. So that would be great. And yeah, so that's it. We still have the rest of the summer to go.
That's right. Lots of it where it's hours until we're yanked out of it. Like I said before.
Exactly. So still the sun is not setting early. We still got plenty of light and nice sunsets, and so go have at it. All right. Anyway, thank you, Ward, for hanging out with me tonight. I know that,
I say always a pleasure, my friend.
Yeah. And then to the rest of you, we will see you at the end of August. So all of you have a great night, and see you later.
We'll see you. And then go into the pen store and...
Well, I've already done that, and that's bad news. So I've done that. I did that the other day, and so it wasn't a pen store. It was actually
any new dungarees or shoes.
Dungarees. That's a word I haven't heard. I haven't heard dungarees in a long time.
Me neither. It's from those health films.
But dungarees sounds like some sort of band from the 50s or something.
Yeah. It's those pants the girls can't wear. The girls can't wear them to school. So they have to wear skirts. Now it's completely the other way around.
Cover. Yeah. Well, dungarees. It sounds Australian.